Hi, hello, namaste. Welcome back to Needs of Children. In this video, we are going to get the information about social science, 8th standard, English medium, history, chapter number 1, sources. Let's come to what are the very important learning points from the lesson sources. In this chapter, you learn sources required to the study of history, types of sources of history, importance of the archaeological sources, importance of the inscription, importance of oral sources in history. These are the learning points from the lesson sources. Let's come to the about introduction for the lesson sources. You are aware about that what is the meaning of history. History is a systematic study of the past. And even from the 6th standard onwards, you get the information, the meaning of history. History is written on the basis of sources. Sources, we are going to get the more information in this lesson or in this video. Hence, there is a no source, no history is the stance of history. That is the reason without sources we cannot accept the history. So that historian is like an advocate. I think you are aware about that to whom we are going to be called as advocate. Usually the advocates present their arguments on the basis of followed evidences and sources related to their case in the judicial system. In the same way, historians collect the sources, subject them critical analysis, examination, and then write the history. That is the reason historians is like a advocate. Let's come to the meaning of source. Whenever direct sources are not available, they need to make assumptions based on the available sources, because of we cannot expect all the proofs, all the documents which are needs to be prepare the history or create the history. So that hence often an event is analyzed from different perspectives by the different historians. Sources are very essential to create the history. Then what is the meaning of source? Yes, let's come to we are going to get the meaning of source. Human beings had created many facilities to lead their life since ancient times. If the things used by human beings in the past have remained, then they are called as the sources by the historians. Even what you are identifying, what you are seeing in the pictures, so these are all the things usually, in generally, our ancestors used the things. These things are called as the sources by the historians. Some example, if you are going to be identify, like the agricultural tools left by the earlier people, forks, coins, inscriptions, arms, temples, and other religious buildings are considered as sources to write the history. Similarly, some of the written documents and literary works are the main source of history to create the or proofs or become the evidence or a documents for the historians. Even the materials needed for the writing of history are the primary sources. Even very importantly, the materials needed for the writing of history are called as the primary sources. Without these sources, we cannot create the history. So as the available of the sources mainly divided into two types. In generally, the types of sources are classified into as a literary sources and then archaeological sources. So in this video, we are going to get what are literary sources and the types of literary sources. Let's come to we are going to get the more information about literary sources, the types of literary sources. Literary sources in generally classified into as a written literature and oral literature. Among that, the first one, written literature. Then what is the meaning of written literature? Written literature is the main source of literary sources. Like literature can bring the contemporary social life of the times of the writer alive to us. As it is a contemporary, that means era or a particular during the kingship, during the part of when they are led the life. So these are all the important evidences or proofs or documents in generally will provide by the written documents, so that they are called as the contemporary social life, the times of the writer alive to us. Written literature, a literary work portrays existing aspects of life either directly or indirectly. It is a written literature. It provides the work, the existing aspects during those days. What's the existing aspects of a life earlier, directly or indirectly, we will get to know about the past. So that these written literature, it is divided into two types. So which are those written literature divisions? Let's come to we are going to get more importance. So among that, it is called as the native literature as well as foreign literature. So then what is native literature? The literature created by Indians in native languages is called as the native literature. So the literature which is created by Indians only, that kind of literature is called as the native literature. Like the literature, it can be created in the native languages like Sanskrit, Prakrit, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, Marathi, Kashmiri, Gujarati, Oriya, and in many other native languages are the major sources are considered as the native literature. Even some of the examples, if we are going to be point out which are those examples for the native literature, like Kautilya's Arthashastra, and then King Hala's Ghata Saptasati, then Vishakadatta's Mudra Rakshas, Kalhana's Rajatarangini, Banabhatta's Harshacharita, Chandabardai's Prithvirajarasu, Pampa's Vikramarjuna Vijaya. Sangam literature which will provide the information about the Chola kingdom. That means as a Tamil Nadu, whoever the rulers provide the administration system, especially in the Tamil Nadu, will provide the information by the Sangam literature. So these are many other such literary works can be named as a native literature. So these work portray the contemporary social related to during those days, will provide the social, religious, economic, cultural and political life of during those kingships, kingdom or era of their important kings. It provides the information. So this is about native literature. Let's come to the second one. It is called as foreign literature. Like, so some of the foreigners who are visited to India, either as a travelers or a ambassadors, or maybe a businessmen or a officials, and some of the missionaries. While they are visited, they have created their observations and experience in their works, in their language. So such kind of works usually we are going to be called as a foreign literature. So these works in generally we call it as foreign literature. So who are such kind of works which are given as a foreign literature? Among that, Megasthenes Indica, Fahian's Go Ko Ki, Huyen Tsang's Cu Ki, Ptolemy's Geography, Feristas Tariq e Ferista, Babar's Tazq e Babri. So these are some of the very important sources considered as the foreign literature. So apart from these, there are many other writings. They provided the source or a service for the considered as foreign literature to know about our India. So as well as they may be as a travelers, ambassadors, businessmen, officials, or in the part of missionaries will provide the information as a foreign literature. With this foreign literature, uh, in these works also can get the depiction of then contemporary social, political, economic, cultural, administrative aspects. That means these visitors, travelers, when they are came to India or visited to a particular kingdom, so what kind of social system, what kind of administration system, so how the economical condition of that kingdom. So these are all they have been highlighted in their works. So it is plays a very important role, especially to get the information from the foreign literature. Here, some of while written literature we cannot consider as all the written documents, whatever they are provided, some of the drawbacks of the written literature we are going to be identify, like maybe to impress the ruler or in the fame of ruler. Even some of the rulers they have been directed to you have to be right in this way only. So in that way, some may be exaggeration, either maybe a hyperbola or maybe a loyalty to one's master are apparent. In generally we are going to be identify, especially in the native literature. Either not only for the native literature, even in the foreign literature also there may be some of the drawbacks, like due to lack of local knowledge. If a person like Huyen Tsang, basically he is from China, so we don't know about our Indian languages. So when he was visited to in these southern part of India or northern part of India, so what he is going to be identify, either how the people they are conveyed by the body language, he is going to be get what he is understood. So that due to these are all the lack of local knowledge, many misgivings can be recorded. So these are the drawbacks of the written literary sources in generally we are going to be identify. So the historians have the challenge of writing history keeping in the mind of all these limitations. That is one of the major responsibility of the creating of historians. So this is about written literature. Let's come to the second one, oral literature. So what is mean by oral literature and how it is going to be considered? So like oral literature means the folk story, folk songs, folk legends, ballads and other that pass from one person to another, either by a word of mouth. So it is in generally we are going to be considered since the beginning of human life, human beings are passing their experiences, what they are experienced. Either it is in the form of story, either maybe in the form of songs, or in the form of ballads, orally from one generation to another generation. So that is we used to call as oral literature. So here are like some of the examples. If you are going to be identify, the folk people have created ballads about their local heroes. There are some of the ballads on Kumara Rama. So he is popularly called as Gandugali Kumara Rama, and even the Nayakas of Chitradurga, and the founder of Bengaluru Kempe Gowda, and the tiger of Mysore Tipu Sultan. About so these heroes, the localates, they have been created to impress their rulers, impress their heroes. They created some of the ballads and they are highlighted. So even Sangolli Rayana, about Kittur Rani Channamma and Sindhura Lakshmana, Midas Taylor, and others. About these are all the peoples, these are all the personalities. Some of the people, they have been created songs, especially like the present day we can see the advertisements to reach the goods or things to people. In the same way, a ruler, administrator, king, their achievement has to be reached to the entire kingdom, so that some of the kings, some of the rulers, they will be intentionally kept some of the peoples to create the ballads in their name, so that such kind of ballads will be reaching to the people, common people, and easily understood by common people what the rulers has did, how they are administrating. So these are all ballads are playing a very important role. And then some other like legends. So legends, it is also one more the oral literature. Legends mean the local mythological stories. Every place will have their own legends. Like there are some of the legends behind the names of places like Shravana Belagola. How the Shravana Belagola, the place it is came into existed. I think you are aware about that, how that Shravana Belagola, behind that story of Bahubali, you are get to know about that. And then Bengaluru, the founder of Kempe Gowda. So like that, these are all the stories. It is came into existed behind their places. Either maybe a Koppala, either maybe a Pattadakallu, and then Gokarna and Mysore. So these are all the places. They have their own stories behind the places, mythological stories. Even your native places, your native place, it has also a mythological story. Ask your elders, they will going to explain about your native place. Similarly, as I told, every village and every town, it has their own legends. Okay, so this is about the today's session. I think you have understood the concept who are we are going to be called as historians, and how the historians will create the history. Then what are sources, the types of sources, among that literary sources like native literature and foreign literature, and then oral literature. So that's it about today's session. I will come back with the next video, the continued part of sources. Until, keep watching my channel. Thank you. Have a nice day. See you in the next session.